birthday, dear. Who? Happy birthday, dear who?
Giacomo.
Oh, Giacomo. Happy. Keep going. Birthday to you. Then play. That's right. Happy birthday to me.
Hi, everybody. Malika?
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. First, I really want to thank Kathy Segal-Garcia, the queen of organization. Really, everyone's clapping. This is how they do it. She is the one who made this happen, and she will be our guide today. You can all click on the Zoom chat when she tells you, and get the program if you don't have it already. I also really want to thank Ted Mayer for creating this most beautiful program, and it's connected to the most beautiful website that he made for my dad, where we can all go and listen to his music and look at photos and videos. And it is a beautiful representation of his legacy. And get the program if you don't have it already. That was an important part, so we have to have it again. And you can always go there to hear him play. So I just want to thank you all for coming together today to celebrate my dad, Barry Zweig. It took me a long time to get this to happen. And, when I visualized a celebration of his life, I saw us gathering in a large space with a nice stage and many tables to sit and hang out and listen to great music and hug each other and talk about him. I promise that will still happen. But right now, we're in a time that calls for a creative way to make a community expression of our love for him. And today, on his birthday, I'm so grateful that we can create our own Barry Zweig channel. And we are tuned in and listening. So I want to share a painting with you that I made and some photos, some great photos. I know. Thank you, sweetie. Okay. Do we have that ready, Kathy?
Sorry, here we go. I'm going to be right there.
No problem. Good time to grab a bagel and some juice.
Oops. Let's see. Hold on one second. Here we go. Here we go. Okay.
My mom and dad bought a house in the desert before I was born. He had told me in those last months that he wanted his ashes to be taken there to the desert property. I'm sharing this painting I made as a way to allow you all to see the story of his peaceful resting place. I walked around the property. It was spring. Everything was in bloom. At the very back of the 5 acres, I came to this beautiful yucca with 4 huge blossoms that were bright, golden, and glorious. There was a perfect space there with a buckwheat bush nearby. My husband, Stephen, and my son, Giacomo, and I held hands and we sang a song for him. Months later, I went back to visit, and the blossoms were still there, standing just as tall, and there was a wind blowing through the seed pods, and it held me. It sounded like a beautiful concert, and it was deeply comforting. It felt peaceful, like he's in harmony with the beautiful desert. Stephen and I got married in the desert. Whenever I would go hear him play a gig, someone would always come up to me and tell me, "Your dad is the best. He's just the best guitarist, one of my top favorites." And then they would say, "Your dad loves you so much. He's always talking about you." Every moment I spent with my dad, he expressed to me how much he loved me and how proud he was. And he loved Giacomo. And he was so proud of you, Giacomo.
It's my son's shirt.
And when he talked about music, he said he tried to get out of the way to allow the spirit of the music to come through to the strings. He would often scare people because they thought he might fall off his stool, and he did sometimes. But that was his gift. He was able to completely lift off and orbit into the music like his body wasn't there, just the song. He also told me the importance of silence, of listening, the space in between the sound. He loved playing. He lived to play. And he said he preferred playing live because he loved people. He loved to see people smile. I want to just tell one last story that I think you'll all really appreciate, and that's of his, when we were all together that last evening. He was very present at those last moments, and he said, "Get me a sip of water, get me a bite to eat." And then he looked up and he said, "Get me a D chord, play me a D chord." And we laughed. And I'm telling you, it was somehow really him coming through. And Stephen says now he sometimes gets the guitar and he plays a D chord for my dad. And so that's something that you all can do when you want to reach out. Oh, Thank you so much. He really loved all of you.
Yeah. Makes the camera shake. Let's introduce me now.
Oh, so I want to introduce my mom, Donna Zweig Eventhoff. She and my dad were together for 9 years, and I'm so grateful for it.
Well, Barry and I spent 9 years together as a couple, but a lifetime as friends. I knew I was not going to be able to do that.
I know. It's hard to do.
I can't stand all the crying.
Okay, go
I will
ahead.
always love Barry for the kind, dear, talented, and deep person that he was. And it seems strange to refer to him in the past tense, but he will always be in my heart. And Barry gave me the greatest gift of all gifts, Malika, and also now Giacomo. And we were so happy after 2.5 years of hoping to get pregnant. We got the wonderful news that Malika was on her way. And we had her name picked out for years before she was even conceived, after hearing our friend Savuka sing Malika and play Malika on the guitar, which means my angel in Swahili. So my grandmother always said, to know Barry is to love Barry. And I know that her sentiments are shared with everyone who's ever known Barry. And I never called his mother my ex-mother-in-law because she was part of our family until the day she passed. And 40 years ago, when I met my now husband, Paul Eventhoff, Barry referred to Paul as his boyfriend-in-law. And I was always grateful that Barry shared Malika with Paul. So she was fortunate to have 2 dads in her life. And they both made parenting great for me because when Malika would ask either one of them for permission to do anything, they would both say, what did your mom say?
Ask your mom.
So for over 4 decades, we had holidays together as a family, and we shared so much music, so many celebrations and milestones together. We got to witness Malika grow up, graduate from high school, college, and grad school, and become an incredible artist. And we celebrated her marriage and her becoming a mother. And Barry loved Malika and Stephen and Giacomo with his entirety. And they're blessed to have his memory and his music forever. Thank you.
Thank you. That was beautiful, you guys. I would like to introduce to you John and Jeannie Pizzano, who were dear and devoted friends of Barry's.
Thank you, Kathy. And we are both so privileged to be here today. Thank you for including us and inviting us. Donna, I'm going to echo what your mother said. To know Barry was to love Barry, and we loved Barry. We loved his music, his artistry, his playing, his soul, his kindness, his sense of humor, which was legendary, and that smile of his that just never seemed to go away. He was a joy to know and a privilege to know, and we will always love him, and we will always miss him.
I'll let you all know, Barry and I go way back, you know, and I can't say anything about his goodness and his smile and everything that so far. You can't say any more about his goodness as a person, and the joy it was to have kind of a relationship with him. And yesterday, as you noticed or it's been mentioned, we shared. It was my 90th birthday, and it was, of course, we didn't have a group here, but a lot of people called, and I mean, we had so many messages, and it was a great day. But it was just fell short in that way because Barry wasn't there, you know. So this goes way back, you know, because we, from the very beginning, when Barry and Ron Anthony, who, by the way, in case no one has heard about this, passed away about 2 weeks ago, and they spent a lot of time together. They were a terrible group to be around, but anyway, all I can say is that, you know, Barry and I had such great meetings and things we used to do. We would spend days on some obscure tune to find the right changes, and Barry would call them secret chords. So we had these secret chords between us, and naturally I'm gonna miss it, but I still remember some of the chords. I should have written them down, you know. Well, like I say, you can't say anything bad about Barry, and I can still see his smile and feel his presence. Thank you.
Thank you, you guys. Love you. And it was John's birthday yesterday. They always, John and Barry always had a mutual birthday party gig, and John just turned 90. So happy birthday, John. Well, it's my turn. I loved Barry dearly, and I wrote a little something in the program, so I won't repeat myself, but I will never forget Barry's love for everything, for life, for his family, for his friends, and for music. He has made me a better person. So thanks, Barry. And here's a song that I wrote shortly after he passed, and John Leftwich and Pat Kelly were wonderful enough to put it together with me. And then I made a little movie. So here is that. I can't forget you, the way your eyes lit up the room. I can't forget the way your smile embraced all who knew you, the way your laughter touched all the hearts nearby. Your kindness touched all our lives and made us cry. I can't forget you. I'll always think of you and smile. I'll always hold you in my heart and feel the love that is you. And when I speak your name, I'll stop and brush a tear away. you and smile. I'll always hold you in my heart and feel the love that is you. And when I speak your name, I'll stop and brush a tear away. I won't forget you, not till my dying Thank you. Again, that was John Leftwich on bass and Pat Kelly on guitar. Thanks for making that so beautiful, you guys. I'd like to introduce to you now a very dear friend who was at every gig, almost every gig, and totally supportive in many ways, which is Alan Waite. So Alan, can you unmute and come on in? And Alan.
There we go.
There you are. Okay,
Yeah.
good, great.
That's a pretty tune. I like that. Thank you. It was great. God bless
Thank
you for
you.
doing that. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, Barry would have loved it.
Thank you.
You know, one of the things that comes to mind is I've known Barry since back in the Dante days when he and John Pizzano used to play there with the quintet. And about 10 years ago, when Barry got very sick, it was John and Jean Pizzano that told me that I should help him because he was having some troubles in his life and he didn't know exactly how to get out of them. So because of my experience with the VA, they suggested that I step in and try and help him. Well, I did. And so I did do all that about 10 years ago. And I spent at least a year or two with him almost every day. I would either take him to the doctor or to the VA or to anything that he wanted to do once he got over his chronic problem. And we would have many, many conversations because I spent a lot of time with him, about 9 or 10 hours in the ER with him on several occasions. And when you're in the ER in a hospital, you have a lot of time where nothing goes on. You're just laying there and waiting for something to happen or a doctor to talk to you or something. So we would just share stories and he would talk endlessly about his road trips with Buddy Rich and Sammy Davis and trips in Europe and Japan and England and his Dante days and how much he enjoyed his birthday because for 30 years or plus, he and John Pizzano would always have a gig on their joint birthday, which is 2 days apart. And that would go back 30 years and they continued that up until the very end. And he talked about that a lot. He talked about his dear little grandson, who he absolutely adored, and of course, his daughter, who was one of his very favorite people in all the world. Yeah, Malika, we had many conversations about you and your artwork, and gosh, I remember. Oh man, he called me in the middle of the night several different times, like 2 in the morning, and one of them, he said, "I can't breathe." And I just hung up the phone and ran right over and picked him up and took him to the hospital. And it was very close. The doctor said, "Thank God you got him here now." And we had a lot of those periods together. And it's kind of a shame to talk about it. I'm sorry, because he was such a great musician and he loved music so much. And one of his favorite jobs was the gig he had at the Speakeasy in Venice, where he had the trio. And I was there every Friday with him for 4 or 5 years. And that was one of his favorite jobs. And he always loved the Pizzano and Barry Zweig birthday gig. And there was one great job that they had at Chadney's long before Guitar Night started. And gosh, he had, oh boy, it's tough, isn't it? Anyway, I miss him very much. Ted and I went to see him on his final day, and Kathy and Laura were there, and it was a rough day for all of us, and it's been a rough time. I miss my buddy every day. I love him very much, and God bless all you musicians out there that adored him, because he adored all of you, and he talked about playing with each and every one of you all the time. And he was a big fan of John's Guitar Night. He came almost every Tuesday and played many, many times on Guitar Night. Wow. What I can say is I sure miss my buddy. Love you, Barry.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you, Alan Waite. I had forgotten to share, speaking of Guitar Night, I had forgotten to share the Pizzano video, which was of a guitar night with John and Barry. So we're going to do that right now. All right, we're going to move on. Thank you for that. That was just such a great evening, right? Let's see. So now, a friend of 40 years is Larry Koons and his dad, Dave Koons, who's not on the line with us, but Larry is, and he's going to play something.
Much love to you, Malika and Donna. Barry was truly a special person. The thing about Barry is when he played the guitar, you could really sense the joy that was always present there. It was always totally real from the core. Just a few small anecdotes before I play for you. I was the officiant at Jamie Rosen and Chelsea's wedding. And every time I saw Barry after that wedding, he called me Rabbi Koons. The other thing that Barry liked is a quote by Tom Warrington. Every time Tom would see Barry, he'd say, "Barry, you're the last name in jazz," because Zweig is literally the last name you'll find in the musician's directory, right? ZW. So Barry loved that kind of stuff. I'm going to play I Fall in Love Too Easily. Really, the lyric has not much to do with Barry. I only want to play it because Barry was so easy to fall in love with. And I love you, Barry.
Beautiful. Did you play a D chord?
Unfortunately, I didn't. No D chords in that tune. I wish there were. I could have used some open strings.
Thanks, Larry Koons. Now we have a person, a musician who has been retired from 61 years on the road, a trumpet player who lived in LA for a long time and was a dear friend of a lot of people here, including Barry's, and that is Bobby Shew.
Yeah. Well, I'll make this brief because I have to do something in London in about 10 minutes. Barry and I were in the military together. I was in the NORAD band in Colorado Springs between 1961 and 64. And I don't remember exactly when Barry came in. I think the text that I read on your celebratory page said he came in 64. So that would have been the year I got out. But we were there together for a while. And we had a great time. And then after we got out, I got out of the service and Barry was still in there for a while. And then we ended up in Vegas. I moved to Vegas Well, I've lived in Vegas from between New York and so forth. And Barry, when Buddy Rich started his big band in 1966, in April of 66, Barry and I were on the band together. And so we hadn't seen each other for a couple of years, and it was nice. I thought, wow, Barry on Buddy's band. So this was great for a while. And Barry didn't stay very long, but he was there for a while and he toured with us. We went to Europe with the band, did the famous album with West Side Story on it and all that stuff. And then the next time I really ran into Barry, I think it was in Vegas again. And we were both working with Sammy Davis Jr. And it's a funny little story about it with Barry, Barry, as everybody says, we love the hell out of this kid. I mean, he was just such a delightful character, But when we were up in Vegas, we were headed after a gig with Sammy. We were going to all-night jam sessions that a bunch of us used to have. We'd play from about 2:30 in the morning until 6 or 7 in the morning, So Barry and I we dropped off somebody and we were headed out to the desert to this drummer's house. And as we dropped this guy off in the parking lot, there was a couple of cops that got a suspicious look at us, And so we headed out on Tropicana Boulevard, headed east, way out towards Henderson and all that. And all of a sudden these cops were following us, and I went, oh no, Christ, because we had been smoking some weed and I had a pocket full of joints, and so Barry was driving and I said, well, we got to pull over to the side. But I said, as you pull over to the side, make a wide sweep here. And so what I did is roll the window down and grabbed all the joints and threw them out the window. And I said, keep going, drive a little further. So we got about 30 feet past where the joints hit the ground, So the cops had us up, hands on the car, went through the entire car. They knew there was some weed in that car, but they ransacked that car from tip to, everywhere, the trunk, and there are horn cases everywhere, our pockets, and they couldn't find anything. And it turned out that we were standing with our hands on the car. My foot was on a couple of joints. And so after the cops couldn't find anything, they had to let us go. And Barry and I got out to the jam session. Our hearts were beating pretty fast, I have to say, but we escaped that. And so all of the 61 years that I spent on the road traveling and so forth, I did my fair share. But I also, not much after that, I said, you know what? I'm not going to jail over a joint. So I cleaned up about 55 years ago. I don't know what Barry did, but it was a funny thing that Barry and I always remembered. We came very close to getting thrown in jail together, But we had so much fun playing with everybody. Every time I saw Barry, I just brought a smile to my face, as he does to everybody here. He was a delightful guy, and we go back so many years. And I saw a couple of the pictures from the NORAD band that you flashed onto the thing. That was really good to see him. And so I thank you, Kathy, for putting this together, and thanks. It's nice to see all of you guys, and some of you I know better than others, but man, I miss you, but I'm not moving back to LA. No way. Where I live now, it's like, yo, see you. Thanks very much. Bye.
Can't hear you, Kathy.
Thank you. That's why I don't usually mute myself. So thank you. And I was just saying that we'll just all go and knock on Bobby's door and just, go hang out with him, Okay, so we're going to squeeze in Paul Krybick. He's a wonderful friend, part of the community, drummer. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you for letting me talk. I know I have to leave a little bit earlier. Thanks for bumping Ronnie and stuff to a little bit later. Anyway, it's funny that Bobby should mention those Buddy Rich records, because when I was a kid just starting, I was loved Buddy Rich and was listening to all those records that Barry was on, and totally inspired, and an incredible player, and he always was. You know, he's one of those guys who just had it. He could play from the very beginning. And then next thing you know, a few years later, I'm playing gigs with him at Alphonse's or Dante's or here and there, and I was just, you know, thrilled to be able to play with this guy and realize what a sweetheart he was before he was just a name on a record of a really great player. And it was always a pleasure because he's just such a solid player and great time, and he loved Brazilian music, and I do too. But I have an anecdote. I was doing a thing with John and Jeannie Pizzano and Barry with the two guitars, and it might have been Leftwich on bass, I'm not sure, but we did a gig at CSUN Northridge, and we did a rehearsal, and we're doing in our shirt sleeves rehearsing, and it's time to go, and actually Barry and I had exactly the same tweed jacket, same make and same color and everything. And his was hanging on one chair and mine was on the other, you know, and we know Barry was pretty short, you know, one of his great characteristics, and I'm 6'6" almost. And so we grabbed these jackets, and next thing you know, I've got his jacket and I put it on, and the sleeve is about to here. He's got my jacket and the sleeves are hanging to the floor, you know. And so we just started cracking up because it was exactly the same color pattern and everything. And we started cracking up. I don't know if a picture was ever taken. We wanted to have that happen. But Barry's sense of humor was incredible. And, you know, when there was big social events, he would actually find these song lists to make up these fake books of titles of songs, you know, that had to do with what was going on. He had the original Iraqi fake book. This is the time when all that stuff with Saddam was going down. And it says, for all the club dates booked between Iraq and a hard place, the band leader's Lester Bin Laden, and the tunes like Alexandria's Ragtime Band, Almost Like Being Alive, Blame It on the Bossa Nova, Camel Lot, Comb Every Mountain, I Can't Get No Saudi's Faction, it's Saudi Duty Time, I Love a Brigade, In a Little Kurdish Town, I Want to Hold Your Land, Kuwait Till You See Her, PLO, Young Lovers Wherever You Are, and it goes on and on. Tanks for the Memories. I mean, and he would just sit and make this stuff up, and Yes Sir, That's My Baby, etc. He had another one when there was a scandal at the UCLA medical school where the students who were dissecting bodies for their medical education were actually selling the body parts to China for so people could get a kidney or something. So Barry naturally had a fake book that went with that. It's called the UCLA Medical Parts Body Scandal Fake Book. Lung for Sale, Ankles Away, Yours Is My Heart on Loan, Catheter Fate to the Wind, Where Have All My Fluids Gone, Autopsy, Peg in My Heart, Bewitched, Bothered, and Beheaded. Anyway, it goes on like that. If anybody wants this, it's hilarious. But we had so much fun playing; it was just ridiculous. And I did these gigs over at the it was called the little club that was like a speakeasy down in Santa Monica. He had a gig downstairs in this old place. It used to be a speakeasy, and every week. Then it was every second week. Then once a month, and it went like that. So I would play it at one of the drummers said what he would call. So we had a ball. But all I can say was I love Barry and I miss him, and I feel like he's still around. He's one of those guys, incredible spirit.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul. Hi, Merle.
Hi, sweetie. Thank you for letting me join you. You're all such incredible musicians, and I feel so blessed that you've been part of my life when I was booking gigs.
Well,
Past tense now.
you got out just in time.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Ron Ishtay, are you there?
You stay. You can stay.
Ron Ishtay, my darling, please unmute yourself. And let me see. Is Ron there? I'm looking. I don't see Ron. So I'm going to move on. Oh, there he is. Here he is. Ron, would you unmute yourself? Ron? I think he can't hear me. Hey, Ron. Can you? Oh, there you are.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Okay. Let me get that up again.
All right. The great Ron Ishtay, ladies and gentlemen.
The great? I don't know about that.
Well, you're great in a lot of people's minds.
Yeah. A legend, right? In my own mind.
Yeah, that's what they say.
That's it. Well, you know, I used to always say I used to say Barry was the best kept secret in town. And he was a great player. And I used to see him all the time at gigs and things like that. And of course, a guitar night and all those things. But we used to talk, he and I, and of course, Ron Anthony sometime, because they were hanging out together all the time. But we used to talk about tunes and things like that. And as far as a player, I loved Barry's playing from the standpoint of you could always see the wheels turning. You know, he was always going for something. And whether he made it or not, he went for it. And I always appreciated that about him. He was very creative. And like I said, one of the best kept secrets in town. We used to have, like I said, with him and I, and of course, Ron Anthony too. And we used to have conversations about different guitar players and things like that, and tunes, of course. You know, I heard Pizzano before talking about the stuff they used to looking for all the secret changes and stuff. Well, we talked about those things too. But we used to talk about George Van Epps all the time, and some of the tunes that he played, and of course was amazing. And so, with that said, I'm going to play something that, if can you hear me?
Yeah, beautiful.
Okay, so I'm going to play this tune that he liked a lot, Liza. We used to talk about. Or use while I go.
happened? Hello?
I
Ron?
can't hear. I can't hear you, sweetheart. You're breaking up or something. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there,
Sorry.
oh, there you are. There you are. You're back.
Yeah, sorry. You went away for a minute.
I did.
Yeah. Could you play the last few bars?
Okay. I was back. Remember it. Well, we both love Cole Porter. That's Cole Porter is my man. You know,
Yeah.
I love Cole Porter.
Yeah.
Anyway, love you, Zwago.
Thank you, Ron Ishtay. Love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Well, now we're going to move to the sublimely jokester of our community. Well, I think Paul Krybick is kind of a jokester too, but I think no more than Luther Hughes. Luther Hughes, bass player, big person in the community. Hello, Luther. And he's looking to unmute himself. I know he can. Come on, Luther, you can do it. Down in the left, you'll see the microphone. Actually, in your screen, you should be able to turn it off. He does this every week. I see him on Zoom every week. You can do it, Luther. It's down at the left, you'll see a microphone, and it probably says that you're muted. And then you can... Do you see that? He sees it, but he can't do it. Okay, I'm going to ask you to keep trying to figure that out. You really should be able to do that. Do you see my note that says, please unmute? Ask to unmute? Yeah, where is the button? I don't know. You know, I'll have the next person come, and then you and I can actually have a conversation on the phone. So the next person is Frank Potenza. Frank Potenza is a great guitar player, and again, all these people are dear friends of Barry's, as is Frank. Frank, you there?
I'm here. I'm unmuted. I hope you can hear me now.
You're unmuted. Yes, you are. Okay.
We're all good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So first of all, my love and respect to Malika and Donna, Giacomo and Stephen and the whole family. I loved Barry. And for those of you who have heard this story, I'm sorry that I'm repeating it, but this is one of the single best ways I can let you know how loving and kind and generous a person Barry was to me. I was at the Union Studios in Local 47 when it was at Vine Street, and I was rehearsing a quartet. We got done with the rehearsal, and this is in September of 1981, so it was within the first year I was in town. And so we got done with the rehearsal, we're in the parking lot, I'm talking to the drummer who happened to know Barry. Now I think Barry might have been there to do Tony Rizzi's wire choir rehearsal. And once a month he used a rhythm section, so the drummer from my rehearsal was going over to Tony's rehearsal in a different room. And so he introduced me to Barry in the parking lot as we're putting our stuff in the car and all of that, just going through all of the emotions of getting out of there. And so in the conversation, I mentioned to the drummer that I was going home very soon to Rhode Island to get married, and I wanted to bring my guitar with me because I had a gig playing with some old friends. But I was a little concerned about whether or not they would let me walk on with the guitar in a gig bag, and that's all I had. So I figured, all right, well, if they tell me I'm going to check this, then it's going to be a bad situation. So Barry, having known me for all of 5 minutes, says, I have an anvil case that would fit a 170. It was an ES 175. I have an anvil case that would fit that in the gig bag. He says, "No, I'll just let you borrow it. I'll call SIR. You go over there and pick it up in North Hollywood, and you're good." I had just met him. And, you know, in those years, it was like, that was kind of an expensive piece of equipment. It was half the size of a refrigerator, but I just thought that was so very kind and generous to just let me use this. And so when we got back, we took him out to dinner, and he let us use it a couple of times on different trips when we were going back, and he got to know my wife, who loved him. And then, you know, through all of the different ways that we would run into each other on gigs or whatever, and of course we were both repeat offenders at guitar night, and, you know, just spent a lot of time together. But I just thought that was so amazing that he just offered that, and without even thinking twice about it. So he just was the best. He was such a sweet guy. And I thought about trying to sing this, but I don't think I could get through the lyrics without blubbering. But I'm going to play you a song that's called My Buddy. It's written by Walter Donaldson. Gus Kahn did the lyrics, and it was introduced by Al Jolson in 1922. My Buddy.
Beautiful. Wow. Thank you. That was gorgeous.
Thank you.
My buddy. Thanks, Frank. Love you.
I love you.
Well, we got Luther back on.
I'm
So
sorry.
Okay, you're sorry. We'll forgive you.
I still bought Krybick's line there.
All right, Luther.
Not the first time, Luther.
No, and it won't be the last, Paul. You can take that to the bank, buddy. Well, thanks for having me. I want to thank Malika, Stephen, and Giacomo for this, and Kathy. What a fantastic job, Kathy.
Thanks.
Thank you all for putting this together. It's an honor to be here. And I'm sorry about the problem with the mute. I think the problem is I have a 1902 model Mac. That might have something to do with it.
Yeah.
Can't be sure. But I first saw Barry's name when I was in the Army band stationed in Germany in the late 60s. And it was that Buddy Rich album that we were discussing before that Bobby Shue mentioned. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, Buddy Rich's swinging new big band, and there was a big feature on Barry, and I remember the guys in the band and I were looking at to see who all's playing, and I saw, and we're all going, Barry Zweig, man, this guy sounds great. Who is this guy? So then I get out of the Army. I moved from my hometown of Cincinnati to California, and I think the first time I met and played with Barry was with our good friend Charlie Shoemaking, a gig he got up in LA somewhere. And that's the first time I met him. and then we would play occasionally over the years. And then in 2007, my buddy who I see is on here with us, John Prue, we started a trio, a tribute to the old Nat King Cole trio, with Barry and John Prue singing and playing the piano, and me trying to keep up with those guys. That was in 2007, and we had quite a few gigs. Well, hey,
there you are.
And
adorable. That's adorable.
And it was just every gig. Those are probably my fondest memories of playing and being with Barry. It was just, we had so much fun. I would just echo and say ditto to every wonderful thing that everybody has said today. There's nothing I can add to what a wonderful person he was, the joyous spirit he had, his love of his family. I echo all of that. But we, when we would do gigs with our Nat Cole trio, we would always play Nature Boy by Eden Abez. And I would always have Barry tell the story about when he was a kid seeing Abez around Hollywood. And he would describe Eden as Abez as wearing this, as he put it, biblical garb. He had this like white robe, and what a character. And a lot of people may not know this, but according to Barry, I think, at one point Eden Abez lived under the Hollywood sign. That was his home. Talk about a character. But Barry loved to tell the story about him. And another fun thing we would do on the gigs, we would play G Baby Ain't I Good to You. John, I think that was the one we played. And so Barry would play some really like nasty blues guitar stuff. And so then we got into the habit of talking to the audience and reminiscing at how the great blues guitar players were all named 3 parts to their name. One was some sort of affliction for the first part. Yeah, Anthony, I see you know this. And then whatever name, and then the last name was always a president. So, we would, Dander, Dander Billy Washington or something. And Barry loved making up those names, and we would just laugh. And I'll be able to hear Barry laughing about that stuff until the day I take my last breath. It was such an honor and a pleasure to get to know and to love Barry Zweig. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Luther. I did want to say that, first of all, we're sorry for not including more people, but as you can tell, there's hundreds and hundreds and probably thousands of friends and cohorts of Barry's, even just in this town alone. So, Malika expressed her, sorry for not including more people, but, realistically, there's a certain number that we can deal with that would be not hours and hours and hours long. I also, Harvey Barkin actually wrote something that was pretty funny. I just happened to see. He said, Paul's comment that Barry was short reminded me of Barry's favorite reply following one of his great renditions. Someone would tell him to stand and take a bow, and Barry's reply was, I am standing. And on that note, Mark Goldstein, who is a student and a close friend. Mark?
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. I just quickly want to say what everyone else has said, but I really want to send my love to Barry's family, this incredible community of friends and musicians, artists. And I want to say that I'm really grateful to be a part of this celebration. And like everyone here, I really miss my friend Barry. I just wrote a piece that is available in the program, but I want to read that. And before I do, I want to say that I came to Barry as a student, and I just hear him in my head again and again saying things like, don't snap it, romance it. Legato, legato, legato. And you can do this. He said that again and again and again, and it's just in my mind. So I'll just read this quickly and pass on the mic. Over the years, I've been fortunate to study with a handful of masters, spiritual teachers, artists, writers, and musicians, including my other Barry, Dr. Barry Harris. I feel confident in saying this, though Barry Zweig would deny it and probably admonish me. He was a master and an artist of the highest order. I first met Barry in 2013 at the Del Monte Speakeasy, where he had a weekly gig in the basement of the townhouse on Windward Avenue. After he finished, I went up to him to compliment him on his unbelievable guitar, an original Gibson ES 150. And that conversation turned into a mentorship and then grew into an amazing friendship. When I went back to Canada 4 years later, our relationship moved from weekly lessons in my Venice apartment to the phone. Those times I missed his call, he'd get my voicemail. Markela, how are you? Are you practicing? How's Genius Girl? His nickname for my wife. I'm just checking up on you. Call me. One call that really stayed with me was the time that I phoned Barry in the fall of 2019. I wanted his advice around improvising when playing live with a group of Toronto heavy hitters. I was driving home from a lesson with a local teacher when Barry called me back to lay his wisdom on me. I pulled over and whipped out my iPhone to take notes. There I was, stopped on the side of a dark Toronto road asking for Barry's advice, who was in sunny LA. Barry, please tell me about improvising on the bandstand. Barry said, remember, you have to love music more than your fear of making a mistake. You're not the mistake you're making. The best note you're playing could be the mistake. Besides, what's a half step between friends? That made me laugh. Then he said, don't recoil. Jump in and do your best. Play less and listen. Every note you play, make it count. You're not just rattling stuff off that you've memorized. Understand the harmony. Make it go smoothly. And listen to the little notes that are there under your hand. When I was studying with Barry, he constantly stressed the importance of hearing and playing tiny melodies on the guitar. At one lesson, he stopped me and said, man, I love your national anthem. Why, I asked. Because of its chromaticism. Then he played O Canada perfectly and effortlessly. As I sat in the car taking notes, Barry continued, dick around, it's trial and error. Give yourself a break. Give yourself credit. Play backup and don't solo unless you want to. If you think you stand a chance, then do it. I started to ask another question, but he stopped me. Wait, if you fuck up, instantly forgive yourself. The little child in you is a brave motherfucker. Help him along. Don't be mad at him. Don't be mad at yourself. You're learning. So learn from your mistakes. He waited for me to type my notes up and then he said, got it? Got it, I said. Good, I've got to go. And then he was gone. But he's still with me every time I pick up my guitar. Thanks.
Oh, thank you so much. That was so beautiful. Thank you. Now I'm going to play a video of Barry and Ted Mayer, who was a student and a really dear friend of Barry's, as most of you on the Zoom know. So, here we go. Yeah, great. Thanks, Ted. Next, we have a very dear friend and collaborator, vocalist Lara Purcell. Lara?
Hi, Kathy. Thank you so much for doing this. It's so good to see everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. I just wrote down some thoughts because if I start talking extemporaneously, I'll probably blubber all over my keyboard. So I'm going to read my thoughts for my dear friend Barry. I met Barry through my dear friend and accompanist Ron Anthony, who just also passed away. So to lose them both in the same year is both unimaginable and somewhat poetic. When Ron Anthony was struggling health-wise and wasn't able to play the way he used to, Barry gamely stepped in, rescuing me in many ways. Even on gigs that I had with Ron, he would pitch in, and this eventually morphed into gigs with the two of them playing guitar with me singing. I was the only singer in town to have two guitars on every gig. And we had a regular ongoing thing at Rabano's. Patrick Barnett would join me. He's on the Zoom call as well. And we had such a great time. I still find myself picking up sheet music, new tunes I want to run through, and my brain goes on autopilot. And I think, I got to call Barry. I got to run through this with Barry and see if this is worth doing. And then I realize he's gone. And that gaping hole will never be filled. I would suggest a tune. Barry would go home and come up with about 6 or 7 different variations of the same chart, different changes, different voicings, different endings, just because he wanted to always improve himself. He always thought he could do something better. He wanted every performance to be better than the one before. And several times he would give me a chart on a gig, and then we would run through it. And then he would say, give it back to me. I got to replace it with a better one. This would go on 6 or 7 times. He'd say, I didn't like that at all. I screwed that one up. Give it back. I want to fix it. So I have 5 different versions of the same tune in my book of many, many tunes. When I was sick, Barry was the first person who came to my house. He made me an enormous pot of soup. It was a special recipe that he had. He cooked it all in my kitchen. He walked in with these huge grocery bags filled with vegetables and broth and chicken, and he made this stew that I ate for days, and it nursed me back. When I broke my foot, Barry would give me rides everywhere, including picking me up at work in Beverly Hills and driving me to physical therapy. He drove me to gigs because I couldn't drive. I have never felt so loved by any musician in my life. I've never felt more respected, more treasured, and taken care of by any human being, with the exception of my own father. He made me feel special. He gave me confidence. I've never felt so appreciated, honored, loved, and supported by any other musician. He was never critical. If I screwed something up, we would both laugh about it, and he never allowed me to feel bad about myself. He was always giving me so much of himself, his time, his beautiful work, his arrangements. He was irreplaceable. I am 5'2". Barry was about the same height as me, but he always made me feel like I was 6 feet tall. I'm honored that I was his friend, and honored that I was able to say everything to him. There was nothing left unsaid at the end. I told him how much I loved him. And the last words he said to me were, "I'll catch you on the next go round. I love you." So Barry, I know you're up there playing for everyone, sharing your generous spirit, your hilarious stories, your love of life, your mischievous wit. I will miss you forever. Thanks.
Thank you, Laura. Very beautiful. Next, I want to introduce Mike Anthony, who is one of Barry's oldest friends. Mike?
Hi, Kathy. Thank you. And again, thank you for Malika and you and Ted and whoever else was involved putting this together and giving us a chance to pay reverence and respects to our lovely friend, Barry. Barry and I met at Valley College back in 1960, and we played in the Bob McDonald Wednesday night band together. That was kind of the advanced band, and we were both playing there together. We had the extra blessing of playing a lot of Bob Florence arrangements, so that was a lot of fun. Barry and I would practice a lot together. We'd either go to his parents' house and get lunch and play, and we'd go to my parents' house and get lunch and play. One of my memorable stories, I think I'll back up a second, and so I don't forget to say that one of his early teachers was a guy out in Long Beach, because he told me at one point he was taking lessons from a guy named Horace Hatchett. And I was trying to think of this name during the night. It came to me about 3 a.m. So I went out in the kitchen and wrote it down on my paper so I wouldn't forget it again. He took some lessons from this guy, Horace Hatchett. And later on, when he was in the NORAD band, is when he studied with the well-known Johnny Smith. He took some lessons from Johnny Smith as well as his background. So anyway, I'll continue on. One of our humorous stories that he and I never forgot over the years was that when he finally was in his own apartment, I met him in his apartment one day, and we decided we needed to work on we're like 18, 19 years old at this point. So we decided our sight reading was horrible and we needed to work on it. So I met him in his apartment. We had a beer. We sat down by the music stand and we attempted to play a Bugs Bauer duet. And if you'd been there, you would have been on the floor laughing, because we started and stopped so many times. We'd play about 2-3 bars and one of us would crash, and we'd always go back to the beginning, always going right back to all the way back to the beginning. So finally, we just kind of got into giggles along the way. And it took us a half hour to get through that piece, and I'm not kidding. It took us forever, and we never forgot that. And we used to joke later on that we could now play that piece very fast, but with all the same mistakes. So that was one of our great stories. Alan Waite, I want to throw in Alan Waite, you're a hero. all these years that you looked after Barry and did all those things for him, taking him to the hospital and ER, et cetera, you're a hero. You really were so devoted. And all of the things that Mark just said earlier, I could see Barry saying them, because one time I happened to get to his house early when we were going to go to something together, and he was teaching a lesson. I could hear Barry saying all of those things that Mark had recently said. He was a wonderful teacher. And of course, as a player, I'm repeating what everyone else said. His musicality in his playing was just awesome and so spontaneous. It was amazing. And when I played took my turn at guitar night, Barry was, as you know, Barry was there most of the time anyway, so I always had him come up and we played a couple of tunes. So the tune I'm going to play for you is one that was a favorite of both of ours, and this is Gone with the Wind. Can you hear this okay?
Yeah. Ah,
Thank you.
beautiful.
Great memories.
Yeah. Thank you. That was a beautiful tribute. Thanks, Mike. Next, we have a drummer, dear friend of ours, Kendall Kay.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi,
Hi,
Kendall.
Monica. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for doing this. This is so wonderful.
Hi, Sharon.
And Sharon. Barry was one of the sweetest and kindest people I knew. And I love Barry. And I know Sharon does too. And all of you. And the first gig I did with Barry was back at Chadney's in Burbank. And we started playing, and Barry just swung like the clappers right off the bat. And it was so wonderful playing with him. I didn't have to do anything. I just played along, and Barry was just the best. And I played a bunch with him and Ron Anthony. It was always fun to see them. And I would refer to them as the twins because they were joined at the hip. And you would always see them at guitar nights and different places together. And I would love playing with John Pizzano and Barry sometimes over at guitar nights. And I had the most fun with them. And it was just so swinging and great. And Barry was so funny too. He had a great sense of humor. and you all know that. And one of the best compliments Barry ever gave me was to give me my Jewish name. He called me Mendel. And often when he'd see me, he would give me a big hug and he would say, Mendel, Mendela, my boy. And I just loved him for that. And we miss you, Barry. And thank you for doing this. And stay safe. Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thanks. Next we have guitarist Pat Kelly, who also was the guitarist on my song that played earlier. Pat. Pat Kelly. Pat Kelly. I'm looking for Pat Kelly. And
would you like for me to tutor him on how to mute that thing or unmute that?
Yeah, tutor him. Pat. Yeah. Let's see. How did we do that, Luther, for you? Oh, we went up to gallery view. So Pat, go up to the right corner where you see view and go to gallery view. And then you'll see yourself and a little microphone that's over your picture, a little microphone on the left. Do you see?
It'll have a red slash through it, probably.
And you have to hover with your mouse over your picture. Yeah,
are you moving your mouse, Pat? Now, I might have to get on the phone with him.
There it is.
Ah, there you go.
For some reason, it wasn't unmuting. I was hitting the unmute button. Okay.
Thanks, Pat. You're just trying to make me feel better. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I know. I have done this a million times. For some reason, it wasn't unmuting. Wow.
So true.
Anyway, okay, here we are. I think the one thing I have to do is for Malika is there's a nice D chord. Barry never told me to play a D chord, but I used to love to call Barry once in a while and just talk for a while and, ask him what changes he plays on a particular song or something. I'm trying to work on some kind of new tune. I'm wondering, I wonder what he plays right through here. So he was always so gracious and more than gracious, just he had so much fun with it, talking about all that kind of stuff and just always seemed like the happiest guy in the world when I'd see him at guitar night or any place else. He just always had this effervescence, a smile that just lit everybody up. And he was always so complimentary, and he just made me feel, like Laura said, he made everybody feel like amazing, So here's a song for you, Barry. Thanks, Barry.
Thank you, Pat. Beautiful. Thanks. Next, we are going to have someone who's been friends and collaborators with Barry since 1982, the bass player Paul Gormley.
Hi, can everybody hear me now?
Yeah.
Very good. Well, I have a huge amount of history with Barry. I actually sort of met Barry indirectly through our friend Ernie McDaniel, who was a wonderful bass player. And Ernie had told me to, if I ever ran into Barry, to be sure and, go introduce myself and everything. So shortly after that, I was playing a casual, and it was one of those big kind of charity balls that had several bands playing, and I was playing with the Tuxedo Band, and I don't know what the band was, but that Barry was playing with, because I didn't really get a chance to hear them. But when I first saw Barry, he was wearing shorts with suspenders and lederhosen and a little hat, and he looked like he should have had a staff and a border collie with him rather than a guitar. And but in any case, I introduced myself, and then shortly after that, we started playing some gigs together, and that was the beginning of a nearly 40-year relationship. Barry and I were part of one of the my all-time favorite bands that I ever played with was with Gene Estes on Vibes, and we sometimes would play jobs where Barry would be leader and Gene would play drums, and Gene would have gigs, and sometimes it would be the three of us, or then later on Gene's brother Alan joined us on drums, and we had other players with us sometimes as a fifth player, Betty O'Hara or Bob Hardaway, or really wonderful players. And but I had a lot of history with Barry and his family. I knew Barry's mother Diane, and we just had this wonderful relationship for many years. And I think I played with Barry on his very last gig. We played it was an open house party that was for a house that was for sale in Pasadena. And it was, I picked him up and took him out to the gig for that night. And it was great to play with him again. He was saying how rusty he felt, but he sounded always just like he always sounded, which was wonderful. It was a great spirit. And we spoke a lot, especially in the last couple of years. After he'd gone to assisted living, I was talking to him once or twice a week most of the time. And when I could, I'd go out to see him, and we'd go over to this great Chinese restaurant in Alhambra there. I know Pat and John Pizzano and some other friends went with him over there too. And
yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it's a really good Chinese restaurant. So, I mean, I just can't tell you how much I miss him. And, when we started playing together, it was like we had been playing together for years. And, one of the things I always like to say one of the best compliments I always feel I can either pay to someone or when someone says to me is when they say you're easy to play with, because that really makes it fun when somebody's easy to play with. And Barry was just as easy as could be. And I really miss him a lot. And it seems so funny not to be calling him. And, just don't know what else, that's kind of about it. I want to thank Kathy, you and Malika for finally getting this together. And it's been great to see everybody and hear all the great stories about Barry. And I think that's about it. I'll always remember him. We must have worked hundreds of gigs together over the years, and it was just wonderful.
Yeah.
So
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul Gormley. Beautiful. Thank you. Hey, also, I want to give a shout out to Bob Barry, who took so many great pictures of the community, so many, and some great pictures of Barry, which you've seen in the videos that we've shown with the photo montages going by. Next person I'd like to introduce is Bruce Foreman, great guitar player.
Hi there, Kathy. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Well, how about that? I managed to make it work. I feel like a tech ace or something. I want to just thank everybody again. This has been such a wonderful moment of being, after being kind of sequestered for so long, to just hear everybody talk, and of course to hear the love for Barry and to Malika and the family. You know, we're sending all our love, and to you, Kathy, for the Herculean effort of pulling all this together in such strange circumstances. It's really amazing.
Thanks.
Barry, I mean, he lit up the room. You know, when you felt like you were the most important person in the world when you saw him. Gigs, hanging out anywhere. He was just so loving and positive and joyful. And I remember every time I'd come, particularly into guitar night, whether I was playing or he was or somebody else was, he'd run over and he'd hug me, you know, just this big hug. And I imagine because of our different height, it probably looked like he was humping a beanpole or something. But it was just, it made, you have no idea just how much it makes you feel loved and important and heard and felt, and that you matter. And there will just, I mean, even though his diminutive stature, he's a human being that not only I felt like he was 10 feet tall, but he made everybody feel like they were 10 feet tall. And there will never be another Barry, so I guess I'm kind of stuck playing that.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, everybody. I love you. I can't wait to see you all real soon.
Yeah. Thank you. This is great, boy. While he was playing, I just tapped into my perception of where Barry is and what he's doing. He's right here. He's totally filled with joy, loves all of you, and I just a huge smile came over my face, and I could just totally feel him with my heart. Next, we have dear friend, bass player John Leftwich.
Hey, Kathy.
Hi, John.
Well, I just want to echo what everyone here is saying, that he was sort of the sunshine when Barry walked in the room. He just brought the sunshine in, and he was supportive of all of us at gigs, and he just brought everything together. He was like the glue in a group, even a musical group or a social group. So, it was interesting. Paul mentioned it, 1982, he met Barry. That was the year I met Barry also. I was born in LA, and my family moved to San Diego for school. And then I was in college down there. So I got a gig with Carmen McRae in 82. And I started driving to LA and doing a big band rehearsal at the Union. And somehow I met Barry right away. And we started playing every Tuesday night because I'd be in San Diego for gigs on the weekend. And I always had Tuesdays off. So I would drive and I'd do the rehearsal at the Union. And then I'd drive over, can't remember whose house it was at, but it was always Barry with different drummers, piano players. And we did that for 2 years, no gigs necessarily, but we would just had a steady once a week jam session. And he was always swinging. That was the big thing. If the notes were different or whatever, but he was just, the feel was just like, wow. So I thought I'd play a little something, because I always thought of him as Sunshine.
Oh, that was great. Thanks. Yeah.
We love you, Barry.
Thanks, John. And John was also the bass player on my song too, and the engineer. Thank you, John. Next person, we're coming to the end, but the next person is our friend Anthony Wilson. Anthony.
Hello.
Hello.
And Kathy, thanks so much for holding and creating this space in which we can share memories and laughter and some tears and music and melody about such a special person. I even remember when I was quite young, just getting into jazz, I asked my father, who's also a musician, who I should take some lessons with. And one of the people that my dad told me was really coming up and sounding great was Barry Zweig. I remember that very specifically. And I never got to take any lessons with him, but I went away to school and I lived in New York, and I came back and eventually started to kind of swim into these waters of this community that is being so beautifully expressed here today by all of you, and particularly around the guitar night. And so at some point, Barry, I eventually played a guitar night and got to meet so many of you, and so nurtured by John, and Barry was always like exactly as described, with the biggest hug and the biggest love, and the biggest support to a young musician wanting to aspire to be just like him and like John and like Pat and like Frank and Larry, all of you, and Ron. So he was so supportive, and so I felt the support, and so I finally asked Barry if I could take a lesson with him, and he said, "No, lessons with me? You don't need any lessons with me. Come on, man, come on." And so humble, and supportive. And he said, "But you know what we should do? I'm going to come over because I want you to show me some of those secret chords." And so there again, the secret chords that he was always looking for. And so we got together just a small handful of times at my old apartment in Studio City. And there's that great tradition that jazz musicians have of when somebody brings you a chart that they've made on a song, either that they wrote or changes that they have on a song, you keep that stuff. And so I've got boxes and boxes full of things that people gave me. So on one of those times, Barry brought this beautiful piece by Billy Strayhorn, Lotus Blossom. I don't know if this is his handwriting, is it? Yeah. And
yeah, it is.
And it just beautiful chords on Billy Strayhorn's Lotus Blossom. And I love the very last part. There's a kind of a fermata, and it says, "Watch Barry." It's so great when you get to the end, because he may extemporize for a while and play some of that great stuff. So I just thought I would just try to play a little Lotus Blossom. I haven't played it in years, but it was Barry that showed me the piece, which I had loved. But Strayhorn is very intimidating, and one of those composers that you shy away from until you feel that you can really handle what he's putting down. But of course, Barry could handle anything. But I'm just going to play a little Lotus Blossom, and I'll watch Barry at the end. And just thank you all for your beautiful words and your beautiful music, and for Barry for being Barry and bringing us together here today.
Hear, hear.
Can you hear?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Thank you, Barry. We love you. Are you still muted, Kathy?
You're muted, Kathy, I think.
Oh,
There we
thank
go.
you. See, that's why I really shouldn't push my mute button. And Anthony, sorry, that was really beautiful, and thank you so much. And this is our friend John Prue, singer and pianist.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Thanks, everybody. And wow, it's such a great outpouring for Barry. What an amazing human being and musician. I first met Barry back in 2001 when I moved to LA. And it was at actually your jam session, Kathy, at the Sportsman's Lodge, the singer jam session. Yeah. And Barry was, I think, playing in the rhythm section. And I just remember meeting him and really connecting musically, and just a sweetheart, of course, of a person, as we've been saying. We started playing in Randy Aldcroft's band together, kind of getting together every week. So that's started playing more regularly. And then, of course, with Luther Hughes with the Nat King Cole Trio. We used to drive together to gigs, and kind of a funny story. I don't know if anyone's ever had Barry drive when you've been in the driver's seat with Barry, but I remember we were driving to some gig way out in Rancho Cucamonga or something like that, some biker bar somewhere. And he was trying to merge onto the 210, you know, and I'm in the passenger seat, and he's got his arm out the window. He's like, "Let me in." He's going like this, and he was going about 25 miles an hour. His car goes, you know, like, I thought, swear to God, we were going to die there. But I just loved him so much, and I just loved the fact that, you know, even though music was really important to him, I mean, he really wanted to know about you, and he would always ask me, how's your family, how's your kids? And every time I'd ask him about his daughter too, and being a grandfather, I mean, he would just light up, and I just know that was really important to him. So I wanted to do this song in dedication to Barry that we used to do at the Nat King Cole tribute, and this is Nature Boy. This is for Barry. Love you, Barry.
There was a boy, a very strange, enchanted boy. They say he wandered very far, very far, over land and sea. A little shy and sad of eye, but very wise was he. And then one day, one magic day, he came my way. And as we spoke of many things, fools and kings, this he said to me: the greatest thing you'll ever learn greatest thing you ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. In return.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Well, we've come to the end, and I have a video message from Julie Kelly, and then I'll play a little bit of Barry playing and movie things. And if you're around after that, people on Zoom, I'll shut off the Facebook feed and unmute everybody, and you can say whatever you want. So I'll do that after a little bit of music. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Again, Malika and I just talked for a long time about how bad it was to not invite more people to come on here. In a ideal world, we would all be together. We would have 500 people together and all be talking and hugging. So please accept our apologies about that. But thank you for all the people who spoke and played. And I think that you really spoke from the heart, and it was just very, very beautiful. I know Malika and her family are very moved, and especially Giacomo, right, Giacomo? Here's Julie Kelly.
Hi, Barry, Julie. I miss you. I wrote you a little letter. Dear Barry, thank you for all your spontaneity and mischief. Thanks for your laughter, which was contagious and unmistakable. Thank you for your musical gifts, which you gave away so freely. Thank you for your sense of humor and appreciation for the absurd. Thank you for your teaching, which was always generous and thorough. Thanks for your experience and stories that you shared. Thank you for all these things and so much more. Thank you for letting us all love you so much. Bye.
babe. Come on. Sorry, there's a little giddy up.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear. Happy birthday, dear who?
Giacomo.
Oh, Giacomo. Happy, keep going. Birthday to you. Then play. That's right. Happy birthday to me.
Thanks, everybody.